Well, hello everyone. It is Shooter. Hey, we're going to go over some waves here at Primary Waves. Of course, at the end of our presentation, please do review our disclosures. Well, we're going to start off with Bitcoin. We broke below, closed at that 39,549. Now, I've got a much broader target here. Now that we've closed, this is going to be our next intermediate wave low. So we got quite a ways down here. So we've got 34,044 on the count. And notice how close that is to the 50% back, which I suggested. If that 40 gives, then we're looking for that kind of low. So that's my 2 cents. I'm sticking to it. So this is going to be our intermediate wave 3 will bounce. I mean, we should have a good bounce on that. That gives us a launching pad, to be very candid. Have some very broad numbers here, which really are unpredictable at this point. This is drive 1, this whole leg. Notice where our divergence came right in here. Boy, was that our tell. Not just the even print on the 49K, but that was a tell. That's for sure. So now we know without a doubt, right? It was a sell the fact event. So we should have shorted at 49K. Now, the likelihood is we get a little bit of a bounce. So now, once we get that little bounce, this will become maybe an ABC down to that too. And then we'll have a little bit of downside. With that, let me jump over to Grayscale. I'm not moving any of my miners. At this point, we're intermediate wave 4 is what it's telling us it's going to be now. I've changed my labels again, so you're going to have to bear with me. It'll take me a minute to get caught up. So we're looking for maybe 34.18 as our next entry long, based on that move in Bitcoin. So now the map's changed, but not that much. Now realize that selling pressure that's been going on in GBTC is really not reflective of spot. So you understand they're two different worlds. What's happening is FTX is liquidating, and they have, sold like 1 billion. I don't remember their total pool. Maybe somebody can remind me in chat. But 1 billion's quite a little bit. So all those large blocks that GBT was selling was funding FTX. So, on that thought. So let's just jump right to TLT. Now, I've left my labels where they are. So, now, and I don't know if it's sentiment has shifted, the count has shifted, that it's suggesting that we now have a Fed pivot on the table. And that may be from some of the news events, but right now, Elliott Wave, with this back test is suggesting that we're going to continue to the upside. So I'm not going to chase it here. I want to see what happens in this gap. I think the gap is the most important thing. If we get to the gap and then we reject lower, this count will flip lower again. So that's sort of my thought. I'm in no man's land here. Not only that, I really don't want to do anything till FOMC. All right, let's take a look at the SPY. Now we pushed and we closed below 50% on the candle. Now I want to highlight that because it shows that we have a very shallow retrace, but that is not positive to me. That look, I would have rather us closed to the high side of the candle, such as in the Russells. Notice the high side of the candle. Okay. Notice in the Dow, the high side of the candle, and then notice the NASDAQ, we closed on the bottom of the candle. So very much like what occurred the last time is that the S&P and the NASDAQ sort of stalled, and then the Dow joined first, right? And now we have the Russells joining pretty aggressive. Now, on a side note, this is a primary wave down on the Russell. So until we really break above these highs at this 8-day, first we need to get above the 200-day again. It's right there. Okay. So we've got some resistance. I don't have my band on here, but we've got some resistance right here at this off number to close at 198.71. So what happens here is going to tell me a lot in what happens in the SPY and in the NASDAQ. Now, again, the NASDAQ is more euphoric than the SPY was today because it was a shallower candle. Okay. And you notice how we are above the prior candle versus in the SPY, we went to the off number. So we're in the breadth of that this euphoric candle, which implies to me that we're going to backtest 50%. I think we're going to come back down to this 480, 50, 51 range, even though the count doesn't reflect that. So let me jump back over to the Dow for a second. Now, the Dow broke out. Notice where the off number closed right at 50% extension. A smidget off of that. So our next target is going to be this 390. I would say that we probably hit it in the next 2 or 3 weeks. Now, we have FOMC. We're supposed to have that 10-day blackout, but there was more news or comments from the old Fed's FOMC numbers than I've ever seen in a blackout period today. So I think going into FOMC, there's a good chance that we run into FOMC. So I would watch the Russell for continuation above that 198.6 because that's going to tell us a lot. If this breaks down quickly, then breadth probably is not going to expand. That's what I was seeing. But let me jump over and look at one other thing. I had 4 charts on my watch list. Let me just jump into. Okay, I like CAVA here. Now, just off of the daily, I'm looking at, we're at $48. Nice volume. This was all over social media. I mean, traders are on this like white is on rice, let me tell you. So jumping out to the weekly here, I really don't want to add anything before FOMC here outside of my scalps, but this really has a decent risk reward. It's a primary. I haven't drafted up the chart as a primary wave yet, but we have a primary wave set up. We have a weekly breakout down here. We've back tested it. The 50-day is held. I mean, strong launching pad right here. I really like the way that looks. Wanted to share that with you. Okay, let me jump over to Square, my next victim. Now, I actually like Square to the 73, just chasing that $5. I do. I want to see what sort happens tomorrow on Tuesday. We closed at the bottom of the candle. And there were a lot of charts that got a nice push this morning, closed at the bottom of the candle. So I'm going to see if we put in another higher low in this range, then I'll chase that 73. But I also like the idea of chasing Square back down to that 54. And just with the breadth of, how Square likes to trade and the fact that this is in a diagonal, a leading diagonal, I just like the look here. I like where we are in our breakout line. If I come out and look at the weekly, we're in this base. So once we get back down to that low, I want to stay really close to Square in this flat because I think it has a launching pad to the upside. So I want to get my feet wet. I want to get used to trading it. That's what I like to do. Right or wrong, that's what I like to do. So let's jump over to Affirm. Now we had one heck of a good candle. However, the count suggests we're going to blow off and we close to the lower side of the candle once we put that in. So this little push, and whether or not that's accurate or not, or we continue, honestly, Affirm's a tough, but I do like it. If you have common shares in Affirm, and I'm sure some of you do, maybe sell some 55 calls. I don't know that I necessarily would cut it. Just stay above where our high was at 52.48. I don't know that I'd go out too far, about 60 days. But once I get this back test, I want that gap to fill. I want to see the bounce. Then I'm probably going to chase this $30 to the downside just because it's such an emotional ticker. It's that kind of trade, kind of thing. Now, PayPal got a nice push again today, and we closed at the bottom of the candle. So again, here's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for that back test. See whether or not that 8-day and that 50-day holds for a launching pad out of this towards that 78. Let me jump out to the weekly on this one. Now, again, when I'm watching charts, and this is what my charts are until I draft them up for you guys. I don't spend a lot of time. I want to just the basic map of what's there. When I like stuff, we got a primary wave set up and we got a weekly trigger and our breakout line's right there. So technically, we popped our head above that breakout line at the 50-day. So now this back test, I want to see where that goes, but that's where I really, because that to me is where the launching pad starts, really. So, but that's what I have for tonight, folks. Great trading. Until next.